Hi, welcome back to Cooking with Chef Stacy. We're here in the Journey Kitchen again. I have a really special story to share with you today. I used to be a personal chef, and at the height of my business, I worked 6 days a week. Yes, 6 days a week cooking for families, and while I was attending church here. So I got a call one day and they said, can you give 3 hours of work, 3 hours a week to Journey? And I was like, oh, sure, I can squeeze that out of my schedule. So personal chef, Journey. And then finally they said, oh, can you give us 5 hours a week? That went up. And then can you give us 10 hours a week? That went up. And then next thing, I was just working all the time. So I had to start making some decisions on how to balance my time. So what I did was I ended up giving up my personal chef business and stepped out on faith and said, I'm going to work for my church full time. So I started working here, and I had a couple of families, but I had one family in particular that I told that I would continue to cook for them no matter what. I would cook for them until they didn't need me anymore. So I ended my business in December of 2019. 3 months later, the pandemic hit, everything shut down. And if I had not have stepped out on faith and went to work for to work for Journey, I would have been out of business. I would have lost all my customers anyway. But Journey, they paid me some money. They paid me a salary each week, even when church wasn't meeting in person and there were no cooking activities going on. I still had an income coming in. So I'm so glad that I was able to just follow my faith and work for Journey. But I really want you to meet this special family of mine. Their family's last name is the Leary family, and I want you to watch this video.
Hi, my name is Tamara, and I wanted to share the story of how I was blessed to come to know Chef Stacy. Several years ago, my teenage daughter was very ill, and I was at the end of my rope as to how to help heal her. She had been seen by over 20 doctors who were unable to help us. After praying for a clear direction for healing, I found a specialized nutritionist who had a plan to heal my daughter through diet and food. The problem was it required very complex home cooking. After meeting with this nutritionist, I was so overwhelmed by the foods that needed to be cooked. I went to my room, I shut the door, and I cried. We had a healing plan, but I couldn't implement this complex plan by myself. I prayed for answers and a way forward. And that is when a neighbor saw my husband out walking our dog, and she gave us Chef Stacy's contact information. Stacy embarked on a cooking mission to heal my daughter. Stacy had to alter the recipes to include only easily digested and highly nutritious ingredients. These delicious meals that Chef Stacy created gave my daughter the energy that she needed to get up off the couch, graduate from high school, and go off to college feeling strong and healthy. Years later, I found my prayer journal where I had asked for guidance in implementing a healing plan. I realized that Stacy was literally a godsend, sent to me by God and an answer to my prayers for healing. My daughter is now very healthy, and she's gone out into the world to help others. She graduated with a master's degree in social work and is currently working in Washington, D.C. And she now cooks many of Chef Stacy's healthy recipes for herself. Food is medicine, and it is such a gift to ourselves and to our families to learn from Chef Stacy how to cook some of her healthy recipes. I am so grateful for the cooking advice that I've learned from her, and for all the answered prayers that healed my daughter, and for the blessing that Chef Stacy was and still is in our lives.
Those were the words of Tamara Leary. When I first started cooking for them, they gave me a sheet of all the instructions and all the things I could and could not cook for their daughter Trina. When I started looking at all of this, I was so overwhelmed. I couldn't use onions, I couldn't use garlic, I couldn't use celery seed or anything with a celery product, and I didn't realize it. Do you know how much celery seed is used as a preservative in foods? I couldn't even use like store-bought bacon. So they gave me lots of instructions of do's and don'ts, and the diets were a combination of things, and I'm probably going to mispronounce these, but it was a SIBO, S-I-B-O, mixed with FODMAP, mixed with paleo, and I had to cook all gluten-free, dairy-free, and so needless to say, I was overwhelmed. I had to take these lists and literally pray over them and start just asking God for creativity on how I could be a great service to this family and how I could make this food come to life. I had to pray for a lot of creativity. So I asked the family for a list of some of their favorite things that I cooked for them over the years. And two of the recipes that I'm going to share with you today, one is a chicken with cherries and kale, and the other is going to be a little dessert over there. And I'm going to tell you about that one in a minute. So I'm going to turn on my pans here so we can get things started. I'm going to pull my chicken out of the fridge. We're going to get these pans warming up here. A little olive oil in the pan. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm a garlic girl. I love to cook with garlic. So when I was given the opportunity to cook for a family that cannot eat garlic, or, a challenge like that, I had to really pray on that one. But I discovered I could use a lot of fruits. Let me get this chicken out of the oven, out of the fridge. I have the chicken here on the cutting board, and I have it wrapped in plastic for a reason. When you're tenderizing chicken like this, and you put the plastic over it, you cover your first surface, you put the chicken in there, cover it up, so when you're pounding it, you're not getting that juice and all the juices splattered everywhere, contaminating your kitchen. Take that plastic off. There's some sizzle. That's what we want going on in there. And look at that. Clean that right up. No mess. You know I like it when there's not a mess being made. So we're going to add a little salt and pepper to this chicken. I've got 4 breasts that I've already pounded going. I've got my other pan going over here warming up. Now, this recipe does call for shallots, but for this family, I couldn't use the shallots for when I cook for them. You can add the shallots to your recipe, but I'm gonna leave them out because I'm gonna make it just like I made it for them. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is add the cherries in here and get them breaking down. These were just frozen cherries. Let's use this one here. Now, cherries are so good for you. They're full of fiber. Oh my goodness, they have vitamins and minerals in them. And then we're gonna add the superfood, kale. Kale has so many good properties that I can't even tell you how many. It's A, vitamin K, B6, C, calcium, potassium, copper, magnesium. This is chocked full of good stuff. So now, I have already have it chopped up, but what I wanna make sure is that you wanna make sure you don't get any of the big stems or anything in it. So you wanna make sure you cut your stems out, chop it all up, and it's gonna go in here with your cherries. So we're gonna get this all steaming in with these cherries. They're gonna be soaking up all that juice, and then we've got a few other things that we're gonna add here. But so while this is cooking, we wanna make sure we get these a little bit brown on the outside. While I was cooking for that family, what really struck me was that the very first time that I met Trina, she came down the stairs and she wasn't smiling. And that memory really stuck with me, that she didn't light up when I met her. And so I took that home and I just took her into my prayer life and just prayed over her. And the one thing that I can say now is that I love the fact that I got to cook for their family long enough that I got to see a million smiles come from her. So I'm so glad that God allowed me to be a part of her journey. Look at this, we got some chicken going here. We just wanna, it's not got a little brown on the outside. We wanna wait till we get just a little bit of brown on the outside, and we're gonna flip that. Over here, we've got the cherries mixing. Woo, with the kale. I've got some balsamic vinegar I'm gonna add to this, and I'm gonna cover it and let this steam. I've got a little bit of Dijon mustard. That way you get that little bit of tang mixed in. That's gonna be part of that little sauce that's gonna create in there. Let's get that all going. I'm gonna put a lid over this, let this kale just steam for a minute. This is such a simple recipe, but it's chocked with so much flavor. Now, my lid doesn't fit this pan perfect, but it's gonna work. As I got to cook for the family over the years, I had to look back and realize that I have been cooking for this family since 2016. And we kept a little notebook here of all the things that I cooked for them. And so because we had so many allergies and so many different ingredients that we had to kind of cook around, I kept notes, and I kept really detailed notes. And this is kind of the life of my time with this family. And when I look back, the first menu is in January of 2016 when I cooked for them. And we listed every ingredient. And we did that because we wanted to track exactly what we were using in every recipe. So then that way, if anything happened and she didn't feel so good after that week, we could always go back and look at exactly what we did. But one thing I did learn about cooking for the Learys too is that I had to become a really good label reader. Even doing something as simple as this, we used organic ingredients, but we had to become a label reader. And if we didn't know what something was, we would look it up. Either I would look it up, or the mom would look it up. Had an app on my phone where you could zap the little packaging in the store, and it can tell you the ingredient list. And so I became a real good label reader. And that's something that you can do for your family as well. Let's turn this over. Look at that, how we're getting some nice color on that already. I'm gonna give it a little more seasoning on this side. And by pounding the chicken as well, it makes it a little bit thinner, kind of like a chicken cutlet, so it won't take as long to cook. It smells good already. Let's see how our kale is doing. Gotta make sure. I'm so bad at touching hot pans all the time. I gotta make sure. Look how that's wilting. It's getting the cherry juices are all coming together here. I'm gonna add just a little bit of seasoning to this as well, a little bit of salt and pepper. And remember, I could not use garlic or onion whenever I cook these recipes. I love recipes that are fast and easy. And you know, kale is kind of like spinach in the fact that you can cook a whole lot of it and it kind of steams down. Look at that. I'm going to turn this back down a little bit. There we go. Put the lid back on it. And in just a second, we're going to add this to it. So, as I was cooking for the Leary family, one of the things that I really learned along the way is that I had to admit right off the bat, I am not a doctor. I am not a professional nutritionist. So how was I going to cook and take on the challenge of cooking for this family? So I had to learn to just pray over the ingredients. And I would do that every week. But I would take the ingredients that were allowed and I would just ask God to help me find new recipes and new combinations to make those recipes really come to life and nourishing. I even remember the first time that Trina, she went to Four Rivers Restaurant, a little local barbecue place here, and she wanted to go out with her friends. But there was so many times when she would choose not to go out with her friends because she didn't know if she could eat something on the menu, and there were so many different things that she could not eat. So we used to make her own little barbecue sauces and put them in a little bottle, we would, wash them out or whatever, have little bottles, and she could put them in her purse. We would make her own sauces. So she could go to the restaurant with her friends. She could order the chicken, pull her little sauce out of her purse, and she could put her own sauces on it. I remember that. And I also remember how hard it was at first looking for things like a tomato sauce or a chicken stock. And so we made everything from scratch at our house and froze it. But eventually, we did find some brands that we could use that didn't have all the offending ingredients in it. Look at that. I'm going to take this chicken and I am going to put it in the pan with my kale. Look at that. So you're getting all the goodness of the kale, the vitamin load of this simple dish. Look at that together. Then you can serve this on your table. Look how good that looks. And just think of all the nutrients that you're getting out of this. I'm so thankful that God placed them in my life so that I could have an opportunity to just share what I love to do with other people. Look at that. While that's cooking just a few more minutes, I want to tell you about a second recipe here that we're going to have for dessert. Ugh, this is a little heavy plate. This is a zucchini chocolate bread. And I know the first thing you're thinking is zucchini. Really? Yes, really. Look at these ingredients right here. When you look at the recipe, I've already made this, but I'm giving you the recipe. It is gluten-free, but you don't have to make it gluten-free. You can use regular all-purpose flour. And then it does have sugar in this recipe. But when I was cooking for this family, we used to use date sugar. The reason we use date sugar is because date sugar actually is lower on the glycemic scale. So it kind of spikes your body a lot less than, say, maybe honey or your regular sugars. So also one of the other substitutions we would make is this is dairy-free. But if you're not dairy-free, you can make it with regular milk. We made this with coconut milk and coconut oil. But also, the chips. Let me tell you about the chips that we used. You can find these. We have a local store here, Publix. These are dairy-free allergy chips. And they're made sure they're cooked in a factory, that they make sure that nothing can be in the ingredients. You can use regular dark chocolate chips at home, but you can use dairy-free dark chocolate chips. I know when I was growing up, I was a milk chocolate fan, but as you get older, sometimes your palate changes a little bit. We do everything dark. And even the cocoa powder that is used in this recipe is a dark cocoa powder. But when I did cook for this family, I used Sun Food Brand's cacao powder. And the difference between cacao and cocoa is that the cacao is just a little bit more of a raw form of chocolate and it's less processed. So this one's just got a little bit more processing in it, but it's just as good. So that's just I listed that, just dark cocoa on the recipe. But we're gonna get to try to eat this in just a second here. I'm gonna cut that up. But now, this is the winner here. I'm gonna grab a plate here so that we can start plating all of this up. Look at this. The cherries. Get that right on the top. You can serve this to your family in minutes. Look at that. And like I said, when you use the chicken breast and you pound it out, these were a little bit smaller breasts. So if you got some larger breasts, you'll cook these a little bit longer. But this, we gotta try this here. I got a knife here. And we're gonna get some of this all together. Look at that. The chicken is so tender. And even though we only use just the salt and pepper, you're getting that balsamic. Remember, we added the balsamic, and the tartness from that is playing with the Dijon mustard that we put in there. And then, of course, the kale. Kale is so good for you. Ooh, another thing that we used to make for this family all the time too was the kale chips. So if you have extra kale left over, You spritz them with a little olive oil, some salt and pepper, bake them in the oven till they get dry. You'll have a whole bowl full of some kale chips, which are perfect. Ooh, perfect to eat in front of the TV. I could eat this all day. So, our second dish here, let me grab a knife, is this cake. Oh, this bread. And it has zucchini in it. You grate it up. It's one of them things that you actually don't have to tell the kids zucchini's in it. Chocolate covers a multitude of things. I'm gonna take this little end slice right there. Oh, can you see that? You cannot really see the zucchini in it. Let me hold that up for you. You cannot really see the zucchini. The chocolate covers it, so it can be our secret. You don't have to tell the kids. You know that I'm not above hiding foods. And what I love about this is it's so moist. It's so moist. Mm. Mm. This is perfect dinner and dessert. One thing that Tamara said in her short video, which is so endearing, is she said food is medicine. And even though you're not a doctor or a nutritionist, neither am I, you can still make sure that you're putting some really good things in you that are really nourishing you and giving you the nutrients that you need. What I loved about Tamara's story is that she was saying that she wrote in a notebook. And one day when she was at the doctor's office, she kind of wrote out a prayer asking God for help with her daughter. And she found that same notebook a few years later. And after she was at the doctor's office getting a really wellness report for her daughter. And so she was so thankful that she found that prayer and that God blessed us to meet and come together and learn to turn good food into nourishment that takes care of your body. So that's my encouragement to you. Food can be your medicine. So think about what you're putting in you and think about ways that you can always make food a part of your faith journey. So join me again next month. I've got a really special episode next time. And I'm just going to tease you like that. I'm going to leave you teasing like that. I've got a really special episode. I'm going to have a really special guest next month. But get the recipes. Join me on journeychristian.com/cooking with Chef Stacy for recipes, more videos, more cooking tips, more ways to love on yourself. And remember, cooking is love. Cooking is medicine. So we'll see you later. Bye-bye.